this is a walkthrough on how to use OpenAI inside Roblox Studio. Just a quick demo of what you'll be able to do. I made this wise monk character, and if I write in the chat, wise monk, and then ask it a question, should I buy Bitcoin? It comes back with a response. In this case, I gave it a personality to give us bad advice. And I also made another temple over here where you can ask a wise monk and get good advice. And I just did that to show the contrast that you can achieve in character personality using prompts. Prompts are gonna be where the real magic comes in when you're using the OpenAI API. So we're gonna cover that a little bit later. I'm also gonna skip over the basics because you can learn that in other tutorials and just really try to focus as much on the OpenAI stuff as possible. The first thing you're gonna wanna do is go to openai.com/API and create an account. This is gonna give us an API key, which is like a password that we can use later. But that's all we're gonna do on this site for now. Let's go back to Roblox Studio. So I'm gonna stop it. And so this is the NPC that we're talking to. You see it over here. We have a script inside it called Chat AI. All the scripts are in the description down below, so you can go ahead and just copy those. And this is a walkthrough of how to use them, so you don't gotta write all the code yourself. Okay, so we have our Chat AI script, and then we've also created this value in it. And in here, I wrote dumb because that was the string that I wanted to use to identify our character's personality. And if you don't know how to make one of these yourself, you just go up to this plus sign, type in string, and it lets you store a string value inside your NPC character. Okay, so let's open the Chat AI script, right? This is the script that we saved inside our NPC that we're trying to talk to. And we have a player added function, and inside that, we have this chatted event listener, which is just gonna listen for every time a player sends a message. Then we have this string.match. So that's what this is gonna do, is look to see if our NPC's name is inside the message that a player just submitted. If it is, if we're not busy, we're gonna check our player's position to make sure they're within a certain distance of the NPC. That's just the way I wanted it. And then in this, we call a function that's inside a module script that we created, our OpenAI script, which I'll get to in a minute. And we pass some stuff in for our message, and this is where we're submitting the message to OpenAI, and it also returns the response, okay? And then all we're doing here is we're cleaning up the string. You can read these comments and see what each line is doing individually, but it's just cleaning up the string. And then the last thing we're doing is firing our remote event, which sends it out to all the clients. Okay, so let's look at what this message is doing, because this is really where the unique OpenAI part of this thing is happening. We're passing in the character name of the user that submitted the message, right? Then we're also passing in the string that they created. And then the last thing we're doing is passing in our character value, this variable that we created that will identify the character. And then we're gonna use that over in our OpenAI script. The very first thing we do is we use that variable that we created to query this and get the beginning of the prompt that we're about to submit to OpenAI. And so this is how you give your character's personality. You write a little sentence like this, right? I'm a dumb monk, the sage of terrible advice. Got a problem, I'll give you terrible advice that will make it worse. Right, that's the prompt I made for the dumb monk. I actually had ChatGPT generate that, which is pretty cool. OpenAI's documentation also includes a bunch of examples of prompt design that you can use. I would encourage you to spend some time doing some trial and error here to really explore the capabilities of the algorithm. So we're taking this sentence, or these couple of sentences that we use to describe the character, and this can be whatever you want, right? You can go crazy with this. It's whatever sentence you want to write. And we're taking it, we're adding it on to essentially the question that the user just submitted it. There's a little bit of formatting here, right? So essentially, let me write it up here so you'll see what it looks like. Username, colon, question. Right, so that's all that's happening here, is we're getting our prompt from here, and then we're putting our character name, colon, question. See, character name, colon, question. Cool. So we're just creating a concatenated string, one combined string that we can then send off to OpenAI. And so if you're not familiar with web design, you may not have used an HTTP request before. This might be brand new. And basically what this does is it sends off information to a server and asks for some information back. In this case, we put our URL, which is where we want our message to go. And for that, we're using the OpenAI API, and we're telling it that which of the models of text completion we want. In this case, I'm putting DaVinci 3 because that's the best one we have access to.
We're choosing text completions as the library because that's the library OpenAI uses to simulate natural language, as opposed to their Codex library, which they use to write code, and any of the other libraries. We're also choosing DaVinci as the model because the model is like the brain or the algorithm that helps with the text completion. And we're choosing DaVinci because that's the best one available, like I just said.
And so we're saying, okay, send all of our messages to this DaVinci model. Our method is post. This is just a setting that the OpenAI API requires, as well as these headers are also settings that the OpenAI API requires. And you want to put your API key in here. And what I did is I used a module script that just looks like this, okay? So you write your API key here, you save it in a string, and then you just create a function that returns your API key string.
And to get your API key, go to openai.com/API, log in, and in the top right, click your name, and you'll see an option that says View API Keys. Click that, and you'll see a long string of text. That's what you want. That's a unique identifier that OpenAI will use to see who is submitting the request so that they can authenticate your account.
And so now in our OpenAI script, you see that we save our API key by just calling that function, which returns our API key as a string. These are all the settings that we put on our HTTP request. And this body is where the real meat is. We submit this data table. In it, we have our prompt. We start it with an empty string, but here, as soon as we send the message, we replace it with one of these strings. The temperature is a setting. It controls sort of the randomness of the response. The lower the temperature is, the less random it will be, but you might get a lot of repetitive words. The higher it is, the more random it will be, and you might get more creative responses, but sometimes it might not be what the user is looking for. And max tokens is the length of the response. So more tokens is just a longer response. All right, and then we encode the data using a format called JSON, which essentially just makes our table smaller so that it can be sent faster. Cool, and then we save it in this response variable, and we get our response and we have to decode it, so we get it sent back in JSON. Roblox Studio doesn't know how to use JSON, so we have to decode it back. We're saving it in this JSON variable, and then I printed it out so that we can see what it looks like. So it printed out this table. Okay, the table has a bunch of different stuff in it. But if you go into choices, you see we see the response that the monk gave us. Okay, and that's what we're returning here, is this JSON, choices, and then the text. Cool, and so that just sends it back into this return message like we looked at earlier, cleans it, and then fires it off to all clients. And then inside our client server, this first part, all this that's highlighted is sending it to our text window, and our this chat service chat, it puts the message over our NPC's head, so it shows up in the world. Cool, and if you want to jack all these scripts, the link is in the description down below, and it also tells you where to save them, like in the server script service or wherever. I'm really hype about this. I hope you guys are too. I would love to see what you make. If you make something using this, like, please contact me, let me see it. I want to see how people are putting this to use. I think there's a lot of potential here. Let me know what you do with this, and thanks so much for watching. All right, peace.